NSW, what's the accidentally hottest thing done by someone who wasn't intending to turn you on? There was a guy I knew liked me, but had no experience with women and was as much terrified of me as he was interested. I hugged him, and he was so ungodly, obviously nervous. His hands were shaking and I could practically feel his panicked heartbeat. And the vag says, yes, this is good to me. Final year of uni, doing a group project presentation. One of our group members was this really cool, pretty Swedish exchange student. We were sitting on the sidelines as one of our other group members was presenting. She leans over and starts whispering Swedish things in my ear. Holy crap. I turned to look at her and she blushes and giggled and apologized, saying she got the wrong language. We had a lot of Swedish students in the course, so they spoke it often among themselves. She then repeats herself in English, but I wasn't listening because I was too focused on the fact that I was about to stand up in front of a panel of industry professionals with a semi. I was at a neighborhood concert one time and this girl was making her way up to the front while the masses of people were pushing and kicking each other. This very cute girl stopped to talk to me to see what's up, and at that moment, everyone decided to sandwich together. So my body was pressed against her tightly. She was directly in front of me, facing me, and she was pretty humorous too because while we were literally face to face she said nice weather we're having. Never saw her again, but I still think about her. My friend's sister jokingly told me, if you don't stop being naughty I'm going to have to whip you. I didn't know someone I wasn't infatuated with could make me blush for a fetish I don't even like. I was holding my girlfriend's 1-year-old niece last week when the little girl rubbed her eyes and snuggled into my chest. I heard my girlfriend, barely audible, say oh my god, under her breath. We fricked so hard that night. I'm just gonna assume you mean your girlfriend. My wife doesn't understand how much I like when she runs her hands through my hair. My co-worker laid his head on my lap on a long car trip home from the beach. Every minute or so he'd ever so slightly just twitch his fingers in a tiny caress of my knee. Oh my god. I'd say he knew what he was doing. 9 years ago, my friend and I were walking through a park in a snowstorm one night. We began throwing snowballs and getting really into it when he threw me into a snowbank. That's probably when I began to actually notice him. We wrestled together all winter, and I still didn't really think about him sexually. Finally, in February, I was at his house and the snow was 3 feet deep and coming down in a blizzard, so I was just going to sleep on the couch for the umpteenth time when we began wrestling again. One thing led to another, and I didn't sleep on the couch. We've been married for 6 years now. Being forceful is a huge turn on for me. Halloween party. Co-worker went her slave lair. At one point her boyfriend couldn't hear what she was saying, so he gently tugged on her chain to reel her in closer. Needless to say, it moved a little. Waitress spilled water on my lap and dabbed my shorts with a towel for a good 30 seconds. She got a good tip that night. That's strange, the stain appears to be getting bigger. A girl at work told me to kneel down and tie her shoe. I'm 6 feet 4 inches and she's 5 feet 7 inches. I couldn't stand up immediately afterwards. Good boy. My wife knew she was wearing a blazer the next day for a meeting, but couldn't decide what skirt, so she was going back and forth to the closet for different skirts to see in the mirror, but the whole time only wearing the blazer and panties. Hottest combination ever. My girlfriend was in Europe singing with her choir last year, and she texted me a picture of her wearing just panties and her choir blazer. I literally walked into a post when I opened it on my phone. One time a friend of mine and I were hanging out in a park practicing LARP fighting, and he hit me so hard that he broke the weapon he was holding. Inch-thick PVC pipe, through several layers of foam, shattered into 3 distinct pieces. The sound of the core snapping echoed off the trees. It was so loud, and I couldn't stop giggling for like 10 minutes. In retrospect I sort of suspect it was a moment like this for him, but I was distracted by the adrenaline rush. But worry not, this is not the end of the story. 3 years later or thereabouts, I got in his car to go somewhere. We had kind of drifted apart, didn't live close enough together to hang out often, but had happened to find the time one day to try to catch up. A little while off driving later, I noticed a little almost ring of PVC pipe attached to the driver's side sunshade by the sharp broken bits. I squinted at it, somewhat puzzled. "Is that from that sword you broke on me?" "Yep," he said, like this was a totally normal thing to have kept for 3 years. Why, I wondered. He looked a little tortured for a split second, like he couldn't decide what to say. Then, in this very quiet, sad voice, he said, "It reminds me of you." Something about the tone of voice just hit me really hard, like, oh, holy crap. You've been pining and I've been paying no attention at all. This is terrible. I can't even kiss you because you're driving. We're engaged now. When dudes take off a sweater and their shirt rides up a little with it. Degrees. I'm a sucker for accents. Had a British girl come into my work for a few days in a row and every time she spoke I melted. I swear, if she had told me to go with her on a killing spree, I'd have gone. On the other hand, I worked with a tall, genuinely nice, well-built Texan with a broad accent at a New England computer company. A young lady from our British office visited for work. When she met him, her eyes got big and she looked like she wanted to rip his clothes off on the spot. When girls hear a compliment and are giddy yet confident at the same time, usually a quick shrug, a giggle and a smile. Those little playful head tilts girls do are ridiculously hot. I don't know why. You know when a guy stretches his arms up and his shirt pulls up and reveals his stomach? When that happens. I remember girls in school would be sitting at their desk and put their forearms behind their head and arch backwards to stretch. I always thought that was pretty attractive. I wake up to my girlfriend trying to fit her very nice butt into her jeans almost every day. Anyone who whispers in my ear, frick, that gets me. In high school I had female friend that was homeschooled and worked at a donut shop. My parents both worked the night shift so I basically had the house to myself after school. She would come over smelling like donuts every day. A friend of mine was too warm so he unbuttoned one button from his shirt and I could see his chest hair and it was freaking unacceptably hot. Ah yeah, male cleavage. Good crap. I cut my finger on a beer bottle at a party. This girl casually walks by, stops and sucks the end of my finger, without saying anything, walks away. That happened 25 years ago and I still think about her all the time. I was being a bit bossy to one of my female friends. When I asked her to go get dressed to go outside, she answered yes, daddy, in a voice meant to point out my pushiness. It had a different effect. I was on spring break a few years ago staying in this hostel with groups of travelers from all over the world, and one night as a group of us were sitting on the patio drinking and chatting about stuff, this hot dude from I think Australia, maybe, laughed at something his friend said and I realized he had the deepest, chocolatist voice I had ever heard. Bam. Right to the clit. I have a co-worker whom I usually spend breaks with smoking. We were outside last week and she was ranting about some stupid crap that went down over in her side of the office. We work in different departments. Anyhow, she ended up getting pretty upset, and while a sexual thought has never crossed my mind involving her before, there was something about the way she was yelling and the look on her face that for some reason made me want to take her right then and there. Can't explain it and haven't had a similar thought since. I couldn't even look at her, I just stammered I have to go, and went back inside. When I was an undergraduate student, I sang in the school's vocal ensembles. One was a chamber choir, the other a show choir. I had an outlandish, shameless crush on one of the guys. He was also a pianist and composer, and a little older than me. We hung out a lot, but I was plump and he liked very thin girls, so he wasn't interested in my. I genuinely liked him as a person, so I settled for being friends and tried to quash my crush. One day, he invited himself over to my house after school. We had an upright piano in our living room at the time, and as soon as he walked in, he made a beeline for it. I stood beside him and watched him play for about 20 minutes. I was mostly looking at his hands but was somehow also keenly aware of his stubbly jawline at the same time. I was completely enraptured. I was wearing jeans and a V-neck t-shirt, being quite busty. It was a slightly immodest look, but it was one that everyone who knew me had seen many times. After about 20 minutes of this frickin' musical Adonis serenading me, my mother walked out of her bedroom. I was standing with my hand on the banister, completely lightheaded with arousal. My mother's eyes dropped straight to my bare chest, which was flushed and heaving. She promptly burst into laughter, suggested that he play more quietly and went back into her room. Italian exchange student at my school. He started speaking Italian on the phone to a friend who had called, and I absolutely melted. Anyone who can casually fluently speak 2 languages automatically turns me on a little, and I have no idea why. Was at work, and I had this co-worker who was pretty hot, but I had a boyfriend at the time, so I never pursued him. I was going to take out the trash, and with this freaking smirk on his face he told me, "Good girl, sploosh," right in the submissive fetish. Similar, when a girl says yes, sir, in a kind of shy, reserved voice. Jesus freaking Christ. It makes it really hard not to just blurt out I like sex and bondage. I watched one of my good friends from high school in a play. He was the villain and had this rough relationship with a prostitute who hated him. There wasn't any violence on stage or anything, but the choreography got me so hot and bothered. I later fooled around with him just because of that scene. If a guy is explaining something to me, sounding all intelligent and stuff, and not realizing that I'm getting wet while watching his lips move, I don't know. I really like intelligent men. In 7th grade, I had a crush on a girl that was very hostile towards everyone, and just all around difficult to get along with. She would frequently hit, slap, punch, scream at, and otherwise harm me and other people. Turns out that since that point, I like being dominated by women. I like when they're in control and use me for their pleasure and their own benefit, or tease me, or delay my gratification. I told her this. We were and still are really close, so a conversation like this isn't unusual, and she said, "Oh, really? Well, I have the opposite problem," and she winked. Dude. A really tall co-worker was reaching for something in front of me, and pretty much had me leaning over a table with him behind me. Insta lady boner. My husband's glasses. We have both worn contacts for most of our lives, and when we've bought glasses, it's always been the cheapest pair, since we don't wear them often enough to care. Plus, you know, poor. We finally bought ourselves new glasses, and I swear my husband has never been hotter. He cut his naturally curly hair short, and with the glasses, he looks like Clark Kent. I'm totally digging the look. One time I was drinking with one of my best friends, and prior to this there had never ever been anything sexual between us. I wasn't even attracted to him. He was pretty awkward, slightly chubby, and on top of it, a good handful of inches shorter than me. He ends up giving me a back rub. I end up making moans of pleasure, because it was a really good back rub. One thing led to another. In the morning I was like, WTF just happened, because like I said, never had any sexual feelings towards him. This began a very wild sexual platonic relationship with my best friend that lasted about a year. Hands down the best and kinkiest sex I've had to date. Always accept the back rub. Folks, you just gave so many people false hope. I work in a grocery store with lots of university-age female cashiers and cash office staff, and a very lax stance on uniforms. Lots of yoga pants. My cousin and his GF used to come over to use our pool. Whenever she sunbathed and unhooked her bra back, I would marvel at her beautiful, almost nude back. I was 3 years younger. She would turn her head, see me entranced, and smile. Once my cousin threw ice water on her back and she jumped. The glimpse of nippage lasted years in my spank bank. About 12 years ago I lived in Utah. A good friend was a rather plain looking, very religious, very repressed Mormon housewife. She came to a Halloween carnival at my kid's school dressed as a witch. It wasn't intended to be a sexy witch costume, but it was low cut. That in conjunction with the dramatic witch makeup made her hot as heck. It was very jarring to see someone I had never given a second thought dressed that way. I wanted her so bad. I played it cool and tried to not let it show, but never saw her the same again. My friend was dropping me off at my place. He was briefly describing to me the mechanics of engines in the driveway. When he got to the functioning of pistons, I about lost it. I was walking to lunch from my office, and this incredibly beautiful woman, classy as heck, in a really nice, tastefully short and airy dress, was jaywalking across the street. A car turns right from the intersection and has to stop while she crossed, and the guy decided to honk at her. She stopped dead in front of this guy's car and fricking spit on the hood. Seeing a beautiful, classy woman get so aggressive and disgusting really did it for me. Gave me an absolute verbal smackdown. This was a bloke I knew in college, 16-18, and it was a long-standing pillar of our interaction to bicker and take the pee. I'd been ribbing him about one thing or another, making the others around us laugh, when he causally laid out a quip that utterly blew any of my insults out of the water. It was just the way he did it, this lazy flick of sarcasm and wit, that had me both laughing in appreciation and inwardly screaming, "Take me now." I went on a date last night with a girl that I have known for a while. After dinner we go back to her house to watch a movie. She changed out of her pants into shorts. When she comes back down the stairs, she apologizes for looking like a nerd because she had knee-high socks on under her pants and didn't change them. POW right in the fetish. She 100% knew what she was doing. My boyfriend and I are in a long distance relationship, so often we'll just hang out in voice on Discord with nothing to talk about. Kind of like we're hanging out on the sofa together, but 1,500 miles apart. One day he started talking to himself about this project he was coding, and OMG instant sploosh. Ever since then I have to remind myself not to objectify him when he's programming. The other day I fell off a longboard and fricked up my knees. My friend's girlfriend started fixing the wound. I completely respect my friend and would never try to get in between him and his girlfriend, but dang, something about her guiding me through the process of fixing the wound, and her being very careful with the wound, was incredibly hot. I can't stop thinking about it. Okay, so I was riding in a train with my male best friend. I was sleepy and fell asleep. It was like 3 AM. When I wake up, he fell asleep on my shoulder. I am a short girl, so seeing him slumped over like that just flipped a switch in my head. I fell in love with him then and there, and he doesn't know. I burnt my hand at work and she rushed over and iced my hand asking if I was alright. The cute guy at work I was crushing on, I watched him gently put on latex gloves and roll silverware. He's normally a really confident, seemingly put together guy, but that particular shift he messed up and did something that got him in trouble. One of the managers yelled at him. The managers are really aggressive. As he rolled, his eyes were downcast, his freckled cheeks were flushed pink, and his hair had fallen onto his forehead a little bit. Holy crap, I just wanted to kiss him to death then and there. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.